Hello there, and welcome to Weird Music on the Glumburger channel. Strange show where each and every week we just take a different album, some kind, generate a little discussion about it, why not, by creating weird, strange reviews for them, right? So today we're reviewing an album that I find to be truly special in my heart. I'm actually not sure why I didn't include this one on my favourite albums list, to be honest, but to be fair, that video did end up being way too long anyway, so probably for the best. In any case, this particular album, it goes all the way back to my discovery of the post-rock genre some 15 years ago, I want to say. I don't really know honestly how long ago. It was around then, I think. But yeah, this was amongst one of the first ones I ever discovered after discovering the genre when an old friend first showed me Explosion in the Sky, of course, right? I remember hearing your song Your Hand in Mine and then being amazed by the genre and wanting to discover more and more, and this was something I ended up checking out and something that has stuck with me for, well, since then basically. I just love on this one the amazing emotional range across the 6 tracks, and the sheer electric performances from all of the members. Very excited to discuss this. So today I present what is actually the debut release by This Will Destroy You, the album or EP Young Mountain. And so, of course, let's ask ourselves, who are This Will Destroy You? Well, This Will Destroy You, a post-rock band from San Marcos, Texas, which is currently formed by members Christopher Royal King, Jeremy Galindo, Robbie Gonzalez, and Jesse Keys. And since their formation in 2004 by King and Galindo, This Will Destroy You have gone through a number of different changes over the many years, but with that, they bring with it sort of an evolving sound that really pushes the post-rock genre into, new areas, into areas of shoegaze, ambient, drone, and even doom metal at times. And for me, as a result, I never quite am sure what I'm going to get from the band when I decide to listen to them. But I think that's kind of cool. It makes each and every release, very interesting, and they never seem to let the particulars of any, particular genres, stifle their burgeoning creativity and exploration. They just do whatever they seem to want to do, and I think it's really cool as a result. But yeah, of course, today we are looking at the debut release of Young Mountain here, which apparently is actually a demo album of sorts, it was self-recorded and produced by the band in 2005, originally sought to be sold after their live shows, which, as well as featuring Jeremy Galindo on guitar and Chris King on guitar as well, who Chris King also handles the artwork for this one, they were joined by old members Raymond Brown on bass and on keyboards, and one Andrew Miller on drums. And I don't know why, but this particular lineup of the band is something I hold really dear to my heart. I honestly don't know why, but something about the way each of the members play their respective instruments on this particular recording, just playing their respective instruments, and with perhaps some special consideration to Andrew Miller, whose drum work on this album, it always blows me away, I have to say. It results in, to me, some of the most brilliant post-rock music I've had the fortune to listen to. And I'll be honest, I actually don't know how well this album stands up to the test of time. But for myself, this has always been a very formative album for me, and one that I just hold so dearly as, and it's always been in the sheer brilliance of those performances, as well as that emotional resonance that comes throughout the songs that it just still blows me away to this very day. It's something I will try my best to explain in the course of this video, so let's crack on with it, shall we? And so, Young Mountain, opening up with Quiet. You're immediately presented, with these very stacked, delayed piano chords and a very gentle ambience. And you get with it such a lovely atmospheric opener that just perfectly establishes this rather melancholy and wistful scene. backed up all the more so by the presence of a guitar that pings around with its own delay effects. And it becomes, to me, this lovely interplay between the two instruments here, and it becomes all the more impactful when the drums start to back it all up. And for me, I love the vibe that's being presented here, love the ambient textures in amongst these guitars, and these bass and these drums. Perfect vibe for just staring out into the vast distance and letting your mind just, form a multitude of nostalgia, it feels. And it becomes such a wonderfully loud dirge though, when the band just lets that distortion turn itself up to the max, it feels, bringing with it all just this loud crunchy section that pushes forward along with that same drum beat, it feels. And this is where, for me, it feels like the song is kind of dragging itself to a much more intense, yet still rather contemplative scene, it feels. Perhaps, being the rushing of nostalgic memories, that blur past like a montage of old photos, just sort of overloading and clouding your mind in this, multitude of thoughts, perhaps. But I love how the band continues to build up that intensity, though, with that continued addition of more distortion, more fuzz effects, that throws the guitars into this crazy, hazy place, which to me sounds, very reminiscent of the kinds of organised chaos heard by the likes of Mogwai, I would say. To me, I think it's a perfect little album opener that sounds so distinctly post-rock in my opinion, but it manages to do one of the most important things, which is just present pure emotion. And in this one, presenting just such a sort of wistful melancholy that, it feels very sad almost, but just so contemplative. Like, I just feel my mind wanders so far and wide when I hear this one. And I think, especially with where this album goes, it is generally a perfect introduction to the entire thing. Moving along though, we get, perhaps one of my many top favourites on this album, The World Is Our blank, I guess? And so this one opens up with a lovely melody that the guitar plays, which sort of lets certain notes bounce around those various delay effects, and you get, this very delightful beat being pushed on the cymbals, it feels, creating something that, it feels similarly wistful and melancholy to the previous track, but I think there's a sense of optimism here. And it's when the drums start to come through though, after this sort of lengthy introduction, where the guitars just really just set the scene perfectly, I feel. You just end up getting with that, a wonderful interplay between the guitars and those various melodies, with the drums just, for me, sounding so beautiful and wonderful in this part as well. Like, this is something that's going to come up a lot on this very review, but it is genuinely, the drums is one of my favourite things about this very release right here. The stuff that Andrew Miller does, I don't know what about it is special, but something about it just really resonates me when I hear it. And, I just love how what he plays, how he plays it, it's got that sense of structure, but it's got this kind of creative, intensive, sort of emotional resonance to it as well. And I just love how it sounds in the mix of all this distortion, chaos, and delay, and just pedal effects and guitar effects. It's just so amazing to me, and I just love how it just really backs up the vibes of the music. Bit of a tangent there, I do apologise. To go back to this song though, I do love how this one does bring in the fuzz and the distortion, for what might be the chorus section, if you can call it that, I guess, in terms of the structure of the song. The guitar seems to screech and whine with this very intense fuzzy effects, before leading up to this very intense build-up as the drums pound away with these amazing fills, it feels, just rattling away on the snares and things. I mean, it genuinely puts a smile on my face every time, and I can't help but be swayed every time I hear this one. It just always gets to me in such a beautiful way that I find it difficult to really put into words what it's making me feel, but it's that kind of glorious feeling, just like really reaching out and just grabbing to something bigger than yourself almost. To further talk about this one though, there's some lovely nice movements or guides itself to. Like there's a bit sort of later on where it starts to incorporate electronic beats, which I think kind of helps to break up the structuring of this entire recording, But still though, even with that, they still let that wonderful build-up continue, letting the drums guide it with an intense pounding of the beats whilst the guitars noodle around those wonderful little melodies. And again, it's glorious and intense, and there's something so full of life about this track, And I think it perfectly deserves those really intense, crunchy moments of distortion that it all builds up towards. And I have to say, how can I not mention the incredible tones of the guitar towards the very end of this thing, just ringing out with that really high-pitched resonance and just that fuzz and just that kind of thing. Very difficult to try to describe, but it just sounds so wonderful in amongst that amazing just deluge of distortion and stuff. Oh, for me, it just sounds so perfect. Just everything all in its right place within the mix that presents, something so big and grand. True favourite of mine off this record, I have to say. From here, though, we move on to another top favourite of mine, and maybe even my favourite track of this whole album. I Believe in Your Victory. And so opening up with, guitars and delay effects, you get that wonderful wistful quality to the music once again. The guitar's just perfectly establishing those vibes and it bounces around with these wonderful echoes before being accompanied by the second guitar and the bass, of course. It's a truly beautiful open-to track, one that's very slow I feel, but it perfectly paves way for a lovely resounding silence that follows on from the first hit of the drums. It just fades into silence before it then throws itself back into this wonderful flurry of ascending notes that goes higher and higher and higher and just reaches up. And every time, every time I listen to this one, it really gets to me, that jangle of notes, that climbing up, that ascension, and then back down as well and stuff with this wonderful delay effects once again. I don't know why, but it creates such an incredible vibe for me where it just feels like being on top of the world and taking in everything, letting it just fill you up with this radiant warmth it feels. Beautifully intense and just so perfect sounding in my books. Like this one just always just really gets me in a sort of nostalgic way. Like I've been listening to this song for so many years in my life and it's the kind of thing that I just want to cry to now because it just fills me with that sense of joy you get from hearing something that's been with you for so long, if that makes any sense at all, which I don't think it does. But it all builds up and it all builds up though. But it then goes into what is easily one of my favourite sections across this entire album. Now, the guitars bring it all back down to that quiet opening that rings out with those delay effects once again, adding in these beautiful ambient swells, before you're then given this truly wonderful and beautiful drum performance that, this is where Andrew truly shines on this recording, I think. You just got this section, this ambient section that then pulls itself out with the drums. He sort of plays the beat for the first, the first 4 bars, it feels, just the first beat, and then what he does then is just fill in with these varying fills. Each fill is quite different and stuff, and it builds up in this intensity, and there's so much character and so much going on with it, and every time I hear it, every fill sounds so different to each other, and I love how it just expresses this creativity, this warmth, this triumph almost, and it's so difficult for me to put into words how it makes me feel, but I just know that it just amazes me every single time. Like, it's genuinely one of my favourite things about this entire album is just listening to that little performance he does there, and it perfectly pulls the song away from the ambient moment into the final section to close off the entire song. Like, it's just so beautiful, especially with those instruments, just droning away on that beautiful melody. Like, I just feel so nostalgic hearing this, is the only way I can put it. Especially as well, most likely, this was definitely one of the first post-rock songs I really got into. I heard this album, I was really into Quiet to begin with, the rest of the stuff kind of grew on me a bit, and then this one, when it clicked for me, has always been a favourite of mine. And, it's just something, one of my favourite things to hear, that truly emotional, resonating experience expressed to me through instrumental rock music. I honestly don't know what else to say about this one. I just truly adore it. Moving on, we get a short interlude, I would say, of Grandfather Clock, a very electronically driven track, with programmed beats, electronic loops, and a kind of wistful, melancholy melody that's, reminiscent of the kind of things Mogwai do again. I don't know why I'm reminded so much of Mogwai, but Mogwai being one of the biggest post-rock bands, it makes sense, doesn't it? But yeah, I'll be honest, this was never a particular favourite of mine, but I did always really appreciate the unique vibes that this particular track presents to us on, this album. It feels rather fitting in the emotional journey that this whole album offers, as well. It kind of helps to break up the flow of the rather crushing, intense post-rock, with something that's a little bit more downbeat, I would say, after, the reaching up and up and up. You kind of got to bring it down just a little bit, I feel, and I think this track does a very good job of doing so. And as well, I think it does perfectly pave the way for the next track of Happiness, We're All In It Together, which is the longest track on this album, but also one of the most beautiful tracks ever. I think the structure of this one, I would argue, simple, not in a bad way though, but a little bit simple. You've just got a lovely descending melody of sorts, that's pushed along by a very slow beat established by the bass and the drums. And as it all plays, you get some lovely intermittent notes that are just drenched in an incredible number of effects, And it's a lovely atmosphere that feels like watching the whole world just blur past, taking it all in, the very notion of our shared existence in this very world. How we're all here, all doing our own things, all just pursuing the dopamine, right? And I should say though, as it continues though, it all just slowly develops with the same loop, the same melody, just pushing it along. And then, you get some lovely sections that it guides itself towards, specifically when it starts that repeated descending melody, the guitars in the back just drone away, before it moves into an ascending position, which I would say is maybe the chorus section, backed up by the violin this time. And especially with the particulars of the melody though, and the continuing drone in the background, it just becomes such a truly beautiful thing to hear that genuinely pulls on my heartstrings in such an amazingly happy way. For me, it feels like, an expression of the very beauty of happiness itself, how we're all just trying to be happy, do what makes us happy, hearing what makes us happy with music, I guess, and, celebrating the very fact in just a beautiful, tremendous way. And as the whole thing progresses, it does slowly build up the intensity, especially with the resounding pound of the drums and the build-up of drones and even distortion at times. And I'm pretty sure as well there's probably some EBOs in here. I don't know for sure, I might be wrong. But there is something droning away in the back so brilliantly. And like I said, it does feel simplistic in terms of that structure. But like I said, not in a bad way, because there's such an emotional resonance to it. It's it's just so, it just seems to go sort of back and forth between the various melodies, that sort of descending riff, the ascending riff, and it just lets the instrument have more and more effects to just slowly push it all out in this very impactful way. And it just becomes about how the very band's performing the song itself, though, just letting the emotion of their actions take hold. And to me, it actually doesn't surprise me that they end up playing what I would describe as an extended outro of sorts towards the end, As much as they've let it all build up, they then bring it all back down, letting the melody take over, backed up by the wonderful swell of drones and violins. And especially that violin at the end, just pulling on those notes. It just sounds so beautiful in my opinion. And something about that whole atmosphere just feels, fills me with a sense of joy, Something so powerful and intense that, once again, I just want to start doing that kind of happy cry again. Such a weird thing in my books, but something so beautiful about it as well, I think. And I just love how it's all been presented to us in the form of instrumental music, No words, just emotional atmosphere through the playing of instruments. We get one final track though. The last song, Some Remedies Are Worse Than Disease. A very unusual song to actually end this on, especially after the kind of emotional journey we've been taken on. This one opens up with very delayed guitar notes, pinging around with those echoing effects. And I feel like it's perhaps one of the more darker and intense songs in this album, But it feels like, once again, a lovely interplay between the guitars and the drums that pound away with that resounding effect once again. And it takes us on a very beautiful, cathartic journey, ending the whole thing on a track that feels very melancholic in a very macabre way, I would say, especially in consideration to the predecessors. Like the coming of a storm following a very beautiful experience. But I kind of like the darker attitude that this particular one presents, throwing us into a scene of uncertainty as it delves into these quieter moments that feature the droning violins once again. And I like how it slowly builds up, just letting the effects just stretch the notes into these wonderful instrumental passages that continue to build with a sense of ferocious intensity, as though it's all slowly building up towards something, only for it then to fade everything out, to leave one guitar to carry the entire scene along. And it then, from there, leads to a very interesting moment where the drums become much more militant, it feels, really establishing a sense of worry and turmoil as the guitars just drone and ping away with those effects once again. And it then sort of brings us right back to that sort of uncertain build-up towards that terrifying vision once again, reminding me kind of a lot of like Godspeed You Black Emperor at this time for some reason. Now, especially with that interplay between all the instruments and how it all just slowly builds up, it then explodes into a distorted flurry of fuzz and distortion. The effects just ringing out as the clean guitar pushes along with those drums once again. and it all seems to just build and build to a sense of turmoil, this very terrifying end, for it then to just suddenly stop. And so, essentially we have covered Young Mountain by This Will Destroy You. I have to say, obviously an absolute favourite of mine, right? I truly adore this album. I don't know if I've explained it very well why I do, but, such is the ethos of weird music. It's just an attempt to try explain these things. But I have to say, I do adore the gamut of emotions this album pushes us through, from the very sad, weary opener of Quiet to that invigorating energy of The World Is Our, before then giving us an amazingly intense and joyous experience with I Believe in Your Victory, before fading it back into melancholy with Grandfather Clock, and then an incredible beauty and gorgeous existentialism in Happiness, We're All In It Together, before ending on that uncertain and nervous energy of There Are Some Remedies Worse Than Disease. I just adore how concise the whole thing is, as well as expressing that range of emotion, expressed through these very concise instrumental performances that play around with so many different effects and distortion to such wonderful effect, essentially. But as you no doubt know already, it is the drums that really put a smile on my face here, though. The way he just pushes the beats forward, as well as providing some fascinating and creative feels from time to time. It's one of those things that always stood out to me, well over a decade ago on this particular album. And even to this day, I'm still pulled through the very same emotions that I was, when I first heard it all those years ago. And I think for me, it's perhaps a reminder of the power that music can have over you, though. How bands can perfectly express vibes and emotions through their performances, and even how after so many long years, it still manages to do the very same. And as mentioned, Young Mountain was one of the first post-rock albums I went into discovering when I first discovered the genre. Something, as I mentioned, was introduced to me with Explodes in the Sky. From after hearing Your Hand in Mine by Explodes in the Sky, I wanted to check out the genre. I wanted to discover more bands, and it was then I came across the likes of Mogwai, God is a National, Do Make Say Think, Godspeed to Black Emperor, of course. And, of course, This Will Destroy You was one of the bands I landed on. And it might sound weird, but all of these bands really helped introduce me to the concept of feeling music, though. How emotions and ideas can be expressed through the instrumental themselves, and not through the words, which used to be the main thing I would focus on in music at that time in my life. It's just melodies, ambient swells, a multitude of minor keys. It all just, presents just emotion to me. And it's something I adored and something I pursued so much at that time. And I think it's perhaps a facet of my relationship to music that I'm starting to understand more and more each day, if that makes sense, There's still a lot of it that goes well over my head, don't get me wrong, but that emotional resonance in music, regardless of what the emotion is, but that emotional resonance is something I find so powerful, and each and every time I listen to This Will Destroy You, I'm reminded of that vast emotional impact that this very music holds. Even to this very day, listening to this album for this very review, I was reminded of just how much I adore this one, and I'm so glad to actually decide to dive into this one, because this one still gets to me in so many beautiful ways. And like I said, I don't know if I've explained it very well, but certainly try it, because I just want to celebrate this album, if that makes any sense. And so I think with that, we're going to come to the end of our episode of Weird Music there. I'm very glad to actually found the time to articulate my thoughts on a kind of music that has stuck with me for the past decade or so. It's something I have discussed enough of on this channel, but something I'm going to try to do a bit more of. I'll try my best anyway. Discovering the post-rock genre was a big game changer for me in terms of showcasing a somewhat more unconventional side to music, where emphasis on instrumental tones and emotional resonance was more important than your simple verse, chorus, middle, eighth structure, right? And as mentioned, this debut, such a special one for me. It's one that's always blown me away with that incredible emotional journey that navigates through that vast spectrum of feelings, in such a concise and glorious way. And I think for me, it is such a quintessential post-rock album at times. Like I said, I don't know if this stands up well to the test of time. I don't know how well it's is rated amongst critics, to be fair, but I personally greatly appreciate this one and truly believe it to be something special. And so if you've made it this far, I would like to thank you for watching this episode of Weird Music. Do let me know in the comments what some of your favourite post-rock albums are in the comments and why. Let's generate some discussion about different post-rock albums we should be listening to. Like, is there an album that has stuck with you for the past 15 years that just gets to you in that emotional way? Do let me know. I would love to know. But yeah, I would like to thank you for watching today's episode of Weird Music High. Wish you all the best, take care, and bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.